Welcome to the Virginia is for Laughers podcast, brought to you by X2 Comedy. If you're looking to get more out of your Shenandoah Valley experience, then this is the podcast for you. You'll meet interesting people, the comedians that perform here, and find out more about what you can do and see. Whether you live here or plan to visit, listen to explore what helps make up our unique slice of heaven. Now here's your host, Dawn Davis Womack.
Hello, Laughers. I am super excited to introduce you to MJ Saunders, certified functional strength coach and personal trainer. She received her bachelor's degree from East Tennessee State University, where she competed as a Division I track athlete and cross-country runner. Post-college, she was a competitive marathon runner and met the qualifying standard for the Olympic trials. She's earned a master's degree from James Madison University and is also an instructor in the Department of Kinesiology, where she teaches lifetime fitness and wellness. She has worked with all types of clients, from the average adult looking for direction and encouragement on how to safely improve their fitness to athletes wanting to make improvements in their sport. She works with our area's vast swim team doing dry land training and been coaching cross country at Harrisonburg High School since 2018. She owns Discover Fitness, her personal training business, where she can take your fitness to the next level. Welcome to the show, MJ. It's great to have you on today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, this is so exciting. I wanted to start out with this interesting fact that I know, but the Laughers will not mostly know. And that is this question. Are you from Harrisonburg, MJ?
No, I'm not from Harrisonburg. I grew up in the suburbs of Toronto, Canada. I came to the United States on an athletic scholarship to East Tennessee State. So
wow.
I eventually ended up in Harrisonburg because my husband is a professor at JMU.
Oh, that's exciting. And when was that you relocated here to Harrisonburg? What year was that?
We came to Harrisonburg in 1998. So we've been here quite a while.
Yeah, I would say so. And I'm glad you're here.
Yes, me too.
Yes, me too. That must have been an interesting time growing up. It's very cold there, isn't it? Or no?
Yes, our winters are long and cold. They start at the end of October and run through, the middle of April. Of course, you have your days that are colder than others, but I remember running a track meet in April in Canada, and they called it the snowball relays because it quite possibly could snow during April in Canada.
And what, do you still run when it snows a lot?
Yeah, you can still run if you could get out there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You have quite the background when it comes to competitive running. When did you first realize that you were naturally good at it?
I always enjoyed running as a kid, just sort of playing around and running with my friends. But the moment that really sticks out in my mind was when I was about 8 years old. There was a Canadian hero by the name of Terry Fox. He had lost his leg due to cancer, and he was a runner. And he decided that he was going to run across Canada to raise awareness for cancer research. And this was the 80s, before the internet, before social media. So his story quite captured the imagination of Canadians. And he was on TV and every night. And he started what he called the Marathon of Hope, hoping to run the entire distance across Canada. But he didn't end up completing his run due to illness, and his cancer came back. So it was kind of a sad story. But what happened the year after he died, and it still continues today, is every year in September, they have a Terry Fox run that you can run in and raise awareness for cancer and give back to cancer, make a donation to cancer research. And so when I was 8 years old, I, like every other Canadian here, heard this story, and my dad signed me and my sisters up for the Terry Fox run. And it was 10 kilometers, and I ran the whole thing. And I was so proud of myself, and my family was proud of myself. And so that was sort of where I got my start. Like, hey, this is something I can do, and this is something I really like doing. And then from there, I joined the teams at school, and then eventually I joined a club called the Etobicoke Husky Striders. I joined that when I was 12 years old, and I was on that team until I graduated high school. So I had the same coach from the time I was 12 to the time I graduated high school. And I really attribute my development to that, to having that consistency of coaching. And that was also year round. It wasn't just seasonal.
Wow, that is such a neat story. And I never knew this about you. So thank you for sharing that. So 8 years old was really your first race. And and 10 kilometers, people may not actually realize that. A lot of Americans are like, what does that mean in miles? So what does that mean in miles?
Yeah, so that's 6.2 miles.
Okay.
10 kilometers, yeah.
Wow. Do you remember your time when you were a little 8-year-old MJ when you did your first race?
I want to say it was about 54 minutes. I remember it definitely was under an hour. I remember being very, very sore the next day as well. Yeah.
And go ahead.
I was going to say my dad had a big red van at the time, and he drove it behind me the whole way because he thought I at some point was going to stop and not want to complete the race, but I ran the entire way. So, yeah.
And how did you feel when you crossed the finish line? Do you remember the feeling?
Yeah, I remember. It wasn't a big race. It was kind of a small one that a group of people put on. So there wasn't this grandiose finish line. But I do remember the adults clapping and thinking it was kind of neat that this young kid ran all that way. So.
Yeah, I think it's pretty remarkable for an 8-year-old to run that far. That is amazing. Yeah. And want to do it again.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
That's pretty amazing. That's quite a story. When we first met, though, you were teaching in one of the local middle schools. What were you teaching and for how long?
Yes, I taught in Harrisonburg City for 8 years. I was a reading specialist, and I was also a language arts teacher at the middle school level. That's what I
That's it. Yeah. Oh, you know what? I want to go back a second. My mind kind of is a little bit ADD sometimes, but I was just, as you were answering that question, it brought me back to thinking about youth and kids. And I'm thinking about your sharing how you got involved in running and joined the running groups after that experience, having the same coach. I want to go back to that for a minute. I'm wondering, what were your biggest takeaways as a young athlete from that experience of training? Like, what kind of wisdom nuggets had a big influence on your life as a young athlete in terms of what's important, what you should focus on, and how it changed you or influenced you?
I think the biggest thing was just to be able to handle adversity, because running is a tough sport. It always hurts. It hurts when you're getting in shape, and then it hurts when you are in shape. So there's a level of discomfort always associated with running. And so working through that pain and understanding that there's some payoff to it was a great lesson for me as a young athlete. Also, consistency, sticking with something and being consistent, because I saw a real change in my performance once I really focused on running, once I really made the commitment to do it every day, to make sure that, I didn't skip any runs, that I was working hard in practice and sort of seeing that payoff.
Yeah. Did you feel like your time really improved over that period? Or did you see a huge difference from doing all of that? Or can you talk about that?
Yeah. I remember when I started with the running club when I was 12 years old, and just not really knowing what was going on. I didn't understand training. I didn't understand what I should be doing outside of practice. We only practiced twice a week, but you were expected to run on your own on the other days. And that's a big deal for a kid to sort of have to figure that out and, manage your time and get out the door no matter what the weather is. And knowing that is a key piece in becoming a better athlete. So I think I really started to realize that maybe eighth grade and definitely through high school. I just sort of continued with those habits.
Yeah, and those definitely paid off. Yeah, those paid off in a big way. You went on to, we didn't really talk about this in our little mini rehearsal, but now it's just all these questions are flooding in my head as we talk about this. So you got your scholarship at East Tennessee State University, and that brought you from Canada to here. What was the difference between your experience of training in college versus high school? What was the biggest difference for you?
Coming to the States, you notice that everything was sort of taken up a notch at the college level for sure. In Canada, the high school level was very competitive, and in the way we structure the sport in Canada is different from the United States high school system. We do age groups in Canada, and my area actually had some very good runners in that area, and they've gone on to win. Some of them won NCAA, some of them even went to the Olympics. So I was in really good company for sure, and of course those runners were miles better than I was. But when you get to the States at the collegiate level, everything is bigger. Everybody was coach this and coach that. And in Canada, we didn't call our coaches. We didn't say, coach so-and-so. We always called them by their first name, but I noticed how much respect the coaches got. I also noticed at East Tennessee State, there is a great camaraderie. Can you edit that?
We know what you meant. All the lappers know what she meant.
Yeah.
Right? You knew.
Yeah. Camaraderie.
I would have said it the same way. You're not alone.
Okay. So there was a great history on the team, especially on the men's side, and they go by the old boys. They call themselves the old boys. So everybody who ran for Coach Walker, who was the head coach there, is considered an old boy once they graduate. Well, of course, I was on the women's side, but I was one of the first, truly one of the first women's team that had been recruited by the coach to come and run for East Tennessee State. Prior to that, they were just very male focused. So it was exciting to be part of the women's development on that team as well. It was just such a great experience to go to all these universities and see different campuses and see how competitive it was, how hard it was. It sort of just became your be all and end all as a college student. And I loved it. So I loved competing. I loved seeing the different schools. I of course I had my ups and downs, but overall it was such a positive experience.
Must have been, because then when you got done with that, you decided to, I guess, pursue the Olympics because you qualified for. No,
well,
talk to me about that. Yeah,
that's kind of it's a little bit of exaggeration. No, so I did know I was a marathon runner because the distance events were my best events in college, and I knew that once I was finished with college, I'd really want to try to be a competitive marathoner, really train for it and try to run as best as I could. And I did for a few years post collegiately, and I met the standard for the American Olympic trials. So the time standard that they put out that says, okay, if you run this time, you're welcome to come to the Olympic trials event. But at the time I was Canadian, so I couldn't go, but that was kind of like a good marker for me to meet. But of course there was there's no way I would have gone to the Olympics, even if I was American. The times were so much faster than what I had run. But to meet the standard was quite a thrill.
Yeah, that's a huge accomplishment that I won't ever make. But I'm slow. In high school, I was on the track team, and I would always come in last. So for the mile of it, and then I remember one time it looked like I was going to come second to last. And then all my teammates were along the fence and just yelling and screaming at me like we were just doing a remake of Chariots of Fire or something like that. So yeah, that's a huge accomplishment to me. What were you hoping to accomplish with the competitive marathon running? Is there like prize money in that, or did you have just personal goals? What was so attractive to you about pursuing competitive marathon running after college?
Yeah. So again, I knew that was going to be my distance. And so I was just curious to see how well I would do if I really trained for that distance. And the goal was just to see how fast I could go and how well I could do. I did win some prize money. I never won a marathon or anything like that, but I did, I had some top 10 places where I think my biggest payday was $1,500. So I got a few hundred here, a few hundred there, and that was kind of fun. I also was an invited runner to some events, and I would get my hotel paid for. So that was kind of neat. But
yeah, that's what you did. And then were you teaching in the local schools when you were pursuing that, or was that after the competitive marathon running?
No, I wasn't teaching at the time. At the time, I was in graduate school.
Okay. So your background in education prepared you to teach in the public school system. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So then you came here to Harrisonburg. You did that for a while, and then you made a big switch in your 40s from teaching to becoming a personal trainer. It's almost like full circle for you. That was your passion through your youth and high school and college, post-college. And then you did the career thing, became a teacher, and then you made the switch. So what inspired you to make the switch to becoming a personal trainer?
So I did enjoy teaching at the time when I was doing it, but there was something about it that didn't quite fit. And I really missed the competitive aspect of coaching, of working with athletes. Prior to when I became a teacher, I actually coached for a few years at Eastern Mennonite University. And I had some good success there and just loved it. And it just felt like the right thing for me. And I didn't really pursue that because coaching at the college level it's a very hard job to get into in the first place. And then once you're there, it's a lot of weekends and time away from family. So I didn't think that was going to be the best fit for me. But as I was teaching, I would always sort of come back to, well, I'd really like to coach again. I'd really like to get back into the fitness sort of world. And, what really did it, this is kind of an interesting story. I remember when I was teaching middle school English, I had an author come and speak to my students. He had written and published a book with a real publisher. The book was in Barnes and Noble, and we read some of his short stories. And then we had him come in, talk about his writing process and answer questions. And it was fabulous. But I remember he said this one thing that sort of hit me like a ton of bricks. He said, writers need to write. And I just sort of stood there thinking, wow, that's powerful. Writers need to write. And then I thought, am I doing what I need to do? Mm-hmm. And the answer at the time was no. Like teaching just wasn't the good fit for me. Wasn't something that was truly that I felt like myself doing. And so I think that was sort of the start of it for me to look for other things. And I did leave teaching in 2011, and my kids were really young at the time. So I sort of just took jobs to make sure that I was, bringing home some money and just being able to focus on my family. I did start teaching adjuncting at JMU and Lifetime Fitness and Wellness, which I totally love because that's about, again, my passion about being healthy and helping other people continue down that path with their lifestyle, and also working with groups and physical activity, which is all part of the class.
Yeah. It was interesting when you were going through that transition. I was too. We were both
right. Yes.
kind of transitioning in our 40s to different careers. And I had done health and fitness myself for 20 years. And at the time we were transitioning, I had the pre-transition before this one where I was teaching, leadership classes and workshops at JMU. And you were going through your transition and figuring this out. And I remember us being at some event at JMU and we were talking about it.
Yes.
Yeah. Going through this and figuring out, you live once, we should just move in that direction. What's the worst that can happen? Right?
That's right. Yeah. I remember that. And you said, well, this is going to be so exciting to see where we both end up. So
yeah. That's really great. And you launched into a personal training career shortly after that. Where did you start your personal training career, and what did you learn from that experience that you have found most valuable in running your own fitness business now?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to get a job at the Centera RMH Wellness Center here in Harrisonburg, and that was a great place to learn. I learned from the director there who taught me about functional strength, and then I also learned a lot from another trainer there who I still work with. He is my trainer, and I see him twice a week, so he gets to work me out hard twice a week, and we kind of kid around that is the longest internship ever because I've been with him for 7 years. And but the biggest thing you learn is that personal training, it's so accurately named because it is such a personal relationship when you work with someone, when you work with them intimately on physical fitness and trying to make them better. It's deeper than that because you get to have these wonderful relationships with people and you get to really know them, and you get to have a sort of like a physical experience, but you also get to have these wonderful friendships and get to know people, and also, be part of that positive path for them in making them better. And so one of the biggest things I know is that personal training not only has to be a good fit, like in terms of like, I can make you fitter. I probably can make almost anyone better, but also there needs to be sort of like a two-way connection so that they enjoy coming to see me as a person and not just the trainer. It sort of runs deeper than that. And that's something you sort of just learn through experience, and the clients that have stayed with me are the ones that we kind of, just have that great vibe together when we work out. Yeah.
So it sounds like what you found most valuable is the way to work with people to establish that connection. So there's a connection while they're being motivated to improve.
Right. Yeah. Hey, yes, that's exactly right.
Oh, that's really cool. So personal training, to me, I did a little bit of it earlier in my health and fitness career, how many lifetimes ago, but I remember that one of the things I was challenged with, so I'm curious to ask you about this, is I felt a bit of a babysitter of their workout, and I didn't stay in it long enough to transition and learn what you're excelling at. So what are your thoughts about how you approach your personal training session, and how do you feel, and how to get them to respond and excel at what they're doing or what you're training them to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a few things. So the first thing is from the physical part, I want to make them better. So like a first session, I just try to get to know them. I get to know them personally, but I also I watch their movement patterns. I ask them to squat. I ask them to, do a hinge, which is sort of like a deadlift. I ask them to do a push-up. So I'm watching their bodies, seeing how they move, seeing where I can sort of help them with their mobility and their stability, as well as their strength, as well as their cardio fitness in order to improve. But then I'm also asking them questions like, what is important to you? Because the biggest thing that's going to keep someone sticking with this and coming back to me is their, what I call their why. Why are they doing this? Nobody has come to me and said, I want to lift 300 pounds or I want to lift X amount of weight. Everybody says, I see that I'm getting older and I just want to make sure that I'm healthy and I'm fit. I really enjoy hiking with my friends. I really enjoy bike riding. I really enjoy swimming. I really enjoy getting out or playing with the grandkids, doing something other than the gym. And that to me is huge. I like to hear that because if I can understand where they're coming from, then I can program them to make them feel good. So when they go and they do that activity and they come back to me and they said, you know what, I went for a hike the other day and I just felt great. And I felt that I could get up the hill a lot easier than what I did before. To me, that is the success of coming to me and getting stronger and fitter.
Oh, I love that because it's such a great answer and wonderful segue into the next question. As a natural endurance athlete yourself, what I find interesting about you is this focus you have on the solid strength program. You have coached movement skills for the youth soccer players in our area and small groups and individual players on developing their strength, as well as many other types of athletes and people of all ages. You were just speaking even how you were doing that in your one-on-one sessions with the story you just shared. So, yeah, why do you think that's so important to you personally, and why do you think it's so important for others?
Yeah. Well, as an endurance runner, strength was not the focus. Like getting into the weight room and lifting weights was not the focus because you're focusing on running miles. And actually at the time when I was really training hard 20 years ago, runners weren't doing a heck of a lot of strength training and they are doing more now. But, as I aged, I knew that strength for me personally was a weakness and it was something I wanted to learn more about. And I just wanted to learn more holistically about how to make someone fitter and stronger and better. And going back to what I said about, wanting to be a coach or possibly a collegiate coach. Well, I knew that career for a lot of reasons wasn't going to be the right one for me. So kind of the next best thing, I thought, well, if I learn about personal training, I'm still a coach. That still gets me into the area of coaching and making people better. And also, again, from a more of an academic side, I'll learn more about how to holistically make someone stronger, fitter, healthier. And I'm also seeing as we age, people start to move less in general. And we want to keep on improving our movement patterns so we can bend down to pick things up, so we can pick up our grandkids, so we can take the groceries into the car when we go to the grocery store. So I just think from, there's always the physical fitness side that maybe some people who are performance oriented want to meet those goals. But then also it's just so important for our enjoyment of life, especially as we age, to still be fitter, still be stronger, be able to do those everyday activities with ease.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then I was also going to say on the athlete side, I just see that piece, the strength and conditioning piece, as a key that can prevent injury, can make people move better and keep them in the sport longer. So that's sort of the other side of it too.
What is something common that you see when it comes to functional strength that people are not great at? Is there a common theme you see? Like when you're working with people, is there an area that you see often over and over again in terms of where they can begin to improve their functional strength?
Yeah, well, functional strength is designing programs in the way the body moves. Mm-hmm. So I always tell people, I think if movement's not muscles, and I stole that from someone, that's not my saying, but so watching people move, I would say, people sort of lose their stability as they get older. So their balance would be an easier way of saying that. I also see lack of core strength, which affects which can affect their movement. But I don't get caught up so much in their one area of weakness, because I look at their body holistically, and I may see a weakness in their core. So for example, when you watch someone squat, if they are really hinging their squat, possibly that could be a core strength issue. It could also be ankle mobility as well. There could be some other areas of weakness that could be the reason for it. You would have to dig deeper in terms of an assessment to find out. But yeah, generally it's stability. Some people lose a lot of mobility in their upper body. So in their shoulders, we seem to just stop moving our shoulders, or if you just never move them, you can see a lot of tightness, a lot of rounding in their upper extremities.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was actually straightening. You can't see me right now, but as she was talking, I was straightening up and putting my shoulders back. That's great. Yeah, I have a background with 2 degrees in kinesiology myself, and I have another question for you, because I would like to pretend I know what dry land training is for swimmers, but I really have no clue. So do tell, what is that, and what does it look like?
So dryland training for swimmers, really, we're talking about strength and conditioning, but in the swimming community, they call it dryland training because I guess it takes place on dry land and not in the pool. So it's sort of the terminology that they use. But yeah, so I'm basically designing their strength program. My focus for them is, get them moving in the weight room and understanding the basic movement patterns that is needed for weightlifting, but also I'm trying to complement the things they're doing in the pool, working on muscles that I know need to be strong for swimming, and hopefully keep them injury-free as well.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. You also have 2 children, ages 18 and 14, and you're married to a kinesiology professor.
You know what that's like, right? Yeah.
I do. I do. And our husbands, in fact, are friends and colleagues. So we've known each other over 16 years now. And I've watched you manage working outside the home and keeping yourself in really great shape. So I want to ask you, what tips do you have for busy parents out there juggling a lot at the same time and still keeping fitness a priority?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I always go back, like I said, is to the why. Why do you really want to be fit, and why are you doing that? Because that should be your driving, your motivating factor right there is do I want it? Am I performance oriented? And that's just really important to me. Do I enjoy, just getting out there and, being invigorated by exercise, or do I want to be able to keep up with my kids? Like, is that why I'm doing this? Or do I just want to be healthy? So if you figure out your why, then you have to figure out the how, right? And for me, it's always been scheduling time. It's just something I do every day, and it's blocked in to my day like any other appointment. Fortunately, I have a very flexible schedule. So right now it's rarely compromised. Now I know if you have kids and a kid gets sick or something like that, then you have to sort of switch gears. But for the most part, if you can just put it in your day, keep it scheduled like any other appointment and stick to it, you might not hit it every day, but you'll probably be more successful than if you sort of have it as an afterthought. So if it's really your why and really important to you, then treat it as such and make time for it. That's basically what it comes down to.
Okay. So do you have a manual calendar, or do you use your iPhone calendar and you actually have it listed on there?
Yeah, it's part of my day. Yeah. So I know exactly every day when I'm going to exercise. There are days where I'm like, well, I'll do it this afternoon, or on the weekend, I'll be definitely looser at what time of day I'll exercise. But during the week when I have to teach or I have other coaching commitments or clients, I make sure that I know exactly when I'll be doing it. Otherwise, it doesn't get done. Just like everybody else. I say, I'll do it later. And then, the day gets away from you, and next thing you know, it's dinner time and you haven't done your exercise, and you say, I'll do it tomorrow. So So it's
wow, that sounds familiar,
that.
Laughers.
Yeah, for sure.
I understand that. If someone's, wants to start, let's just say maybe they haven't made fitness a priority in a while, or, this is some new adventure for them and they want to start making it a priority in their lives. Is there a recommended time frame that you would suggest that they put on their schedule and a frequency per week that you would suggest they put on their schedule to work toward that?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to go out guns blazing and think, oh, I'm going to do this every day. Think about what will be realistic for you based on what you have going on. Like if you have a work day on every Wednesday, you're just slammed in from, morning to night. There's no way it's going to happen. Then give yourself a break and say, okay, it's not going to happen that day. But maybe, start twice a week and do something that you enjoy doing. That's a big one. So don't go to the weight room if you've never lifted a weight and have no idea what you're doing, or don't start running if you hate running. Start walking or biking or whatever you think you'll enjoy, or take a class. Some people really love taking classes and are motivated by that, and that's locked in and scheduled for you. So yeah, maybe starting twice a week, nice and easy, and then just progress from there.
Nice. Thank you. You coach cross country for high school athletes. Switching gears a little bit, what is your approach to coaching the runners, and what do you think is, in general, most important for student athletes to focus on so that they can improve and perform at their best?
Yeah. So my approach is, you think short term and long term. So you have to see where the athletes are when you get them, and think about how can I make them better this season, but also think how can I make them better 2 years from now, 3 years from now, and even 10 years from now. You want them to, where do you want them to be after they leave you? So you don't want them to be injured for the rest of their lives. You don't want to have their best days in high school. I hope that if they continue their running career, that their best days will be after they're with me and not just with me. And then for student athletes to realize that it's just quite simple. You need to put in the work. So running is kind of one of those sports that you have to do on your own just as much as you have to do things in front of a coach. So, don't skip those weekend runs. Make sure that you're sleeping well, eating well, doing all of those things that I can't see you doing as a coach, because they all make a difference, because running is just your body. And then when the gun goes off, there's no timeouts. You have to just keep going until the race is over. But I really like to take an athlete-centered approach. I like to give them the workouts, give them the encouragement, but I like to stand back, and I like them to be the star of the show. It's about them. It's not about me. This is their time.
You have a bit of an empowerment approach, which I really like. Yeah. So they feel empowered to do what you've been coaching them to do all along. That's great.
Exactly.
Yeah. You've worked with athletes. You've worked with what we call regular people. Those of us who just want to be fit, but we're not going to win any races or anything. So you've worked with a wide range of people. Can you tell us about some of your hugest success stories that you've had working with someone on their fitness journey, and then what their goals are now?
Yeah. Well, the most recent example, if I'm thinking about the high school experience, not this past season, but the season before, the girls had a really great cross country season, and they qualified for the state championship for the first time in 11 years. And that was really special to see the hard work that they put in really pay off and get to the state championships. And once they were there, they did well. They placed 7th. So that was awesome. On the personal training side, I have, there's not to always have an example of runners, but I did have one man who could not run a mile when he started with me, partly because if he felt uncomfortable, he would just stop. And I had to sort of teach him, you sort of have to push through the pain just a little bit in order to see success. So I remember going to the track and running a mile with him. And I said, I don't care how slow we're doing it, but we're going to do it. And he ran a mile, I remember, in 12 minutes, but he has gone on to run marathons and half marathons. So that's pretty cool.
That is exciting.
That was exciting. And then also on another personal training story, I work with a client right now, and when he started with me, I guess 4 years ago, he was really tentative because he didn't have the best experience with physical fitness growing up. It was all about just athletes, and there really wasn't a place for people to just sort of be fit and have fun with it when he was growing up. So coming to me, he had a lot of stories about unpleasant experiences with exercise. And you could see it in some of his lifts and some of his movements that he did with me. He would sort of clam up and get a little scared, but now he's just so confident in the weight room, and he's lifting heavy, and his form looks great. The other day I had him do chin-ups on a bar, and it just looked seamless to him. So that was really exciting. And I kept saying to him, I just really love seeing how your confidence has improved over the last few years in this area. So that's been cool.
That's super cool. Those are big. I'm excited for them. They must be.
For sure.
That's really great. Yeah, you've been dedicated to fitness throughout your life and competed at high levels and been successful for sure. What kinds of fitness tips when it comes to fitness goals people have, and that where they want to take where they are to a new level, when it comes to the goals, in order to get the best success, what would you recommend they do in the new year to meet those goals?
I sometimes think people get too caught up in the end result of what they're trying to accomplish. So some people, yes, we want to get fitter, or I want to be faster, or I want to be stronger. All of those are great things to work towards. But I think if you worked on the process and enjoying the process, that's going to keep you coming back over and over again. So my personal training clients, we don't review their goals every few months. They're getting stronger. They know they're getting stronger. They're getting fitter. But again, they come back and tell me what they've noticed outside the gym. I've noticed that when I do this activity, I feel so much better, like I've already said. But if you're enjoying the process, so if you're choosing something that you really enjoy, if you're choosing something that you'll be consistent with, whether it's taking a class, I know that class is going to be at this time each week and I can do it and I really love going. That's what's going to keep you coming back and keep you consistent. Having that goal and then meeting it, that's great. That's one way to do it. And some people are so focused on that, and that's how they will be motivated. I think for the most people, it's about enjoying the process and sort of giving ourselves a little bit of a break, and thinking more like within this month, how many times did I exercise? That's great. And well, I had a bad week. Okay, that's fine. Life is always going to get in the way, and we need to not punish ourselves for that. We need to just sort of understand that overall consistency is going to make the biggest impact on our fitness and wellness.
Well, that is very inspirational and encouraging, I must say. I really love that. Focus on the process and not the goal. I think that's a translatable philosophy, relatable philosophy to other areas of our lives as well, is, we can get really caught up on a goal. And then if we are a little bit short, then we can beat ourselves up beyond fitness. So I think that is words of wisdom for us all to live by. Yeah. And we could start off, in the new year thinking like that and start applying it. And for a lot of us, we're really motivated. New year, new body, new me, right? And then come around March, after a few months, a lot of people tend to fall off. That's why you go to gyms all across the globe and it's busier than ever from January to March. Then spring break happens and then there's a big drop off. And that is something we see a lot. So what are your tips for sustaining the momentum through the remainder of the year?
Yeah, a lot of what I just said. So first of all, if you have a setback, it's okay. Not all is lost. Just get back into it. It's going to be different for everyone. If someone has to see data on their iPhone or Fitbit or whatever it is, then maybe they need to regroup and sort of set that new goal. But again, I think it's just establishing that habit and really enjoying what you're doing and find that thing, what you're doing, what you enjoy doing, because you'll keep coming back to it. Even if you have a break, and then once you get back to it, you're going to remember how much you like something and keep that as sustainable as you can. Again, going back to the why you're doing this. And I really think we need to be kinder to ourselves when we're thinking about goals and motivation, because it's always going to be up and down. No one has highly motivated for the entire year. So it's okay to have a dip, but then don't be all or nothing. Just sort of get back to it and maybe start with a thing you really like doing and then just sort of go from there. Sometimes, like getting a personal trainer or a buddy or mixing it up too can help.
Yeah. I like that message too. Self-love. Yeah. Self-love is self-care. That's beautiful. Well, this has been great. How can people best get in touch with you if they have questions and or want to work with you?
Yeah, you could email me. Should I say my email?
Yeah, you can say your email. I love that.
Yeah.
Spit it out, MJ. Give us that email. So
my email is MJ Saunders, RUN 365 @gmail.com. Yeah, that would be the easiest way to get a hold of me right now. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you, MJ. This has been an enjoyable and inspirational convo on your journey and fitness. It's been great speaking with you today and always a pleasure to spend time with you. I am super motivated to act on your tips in the new year and very much look forward to the next time we get to hang out as friends or at a kinesiology event with our husbands. Thanks again for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. And laughers, to connect with MJ, to explore getting trained by her in person or virtually, be sure to email her at mjsaundersrun365 @gmail.com. That's Saunders, SAUNDERS, run365 @gmail.com. We'll be sure to put her info in the show notes for you as well. So if you're driving or working out, you'll be able to still connect. And of course, lastly, and most importantly, thanks for tuning in, laughers. Out of all the podcasts out there, you picked us, and we think that's pretty darn special, just like you. Until next time, keep smiling. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Virginia is for Laughers podcast, brought to you by X2 Comedy. We'll be dropping a new podcast every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so check back for another uplifting episode. Come to an X2 Comedy show or let us bring a show to you. To find out more, head to x2comedy.com. Be sure to share us with a friend. Until next time, cheers.